I know it's a small thing, but I need your help, Marcus. Please.
Every time you open your mouth, you embarrass me. You always make me feel small. You think I'm your slave? I'm not your errand boy. I am the only son in this house.
Tales by Chika. Come and tell them. Tell them how my only son became this thing.
Right on it, Margaret. The whole world must know. 10 years earlier, Mrs. Margaret was kneeling in her private chapel every morning and every night. She was praying for one thing, a son. She already had 2 beautiful daughters, Grace and Faith, but she wanted a boy so badly that her heart ached. Please God, she would say while tears were rolling down her cheeks, give me a son who will carry on my family name. I will give him everything he needs. Margaret owned 3 big companies and had more money than anyone in the village. She had a huge house with 20 rooms, 5 cars, and servants who were doing everything for her. But none of this was making her happy because she didn't have a son. Grace, her first daughter, was 12 years old and Faith was just 10 years old. They were good girls who were helping their mother and doing well in school. But Margaret barely noticed them because she was too busy thinking about the son she didn't have. Why aren't you happy with us, Mama? Grace asked one day when she found her mother crying in the chapel. You girls are wonderful, Margaret said while wiping her tears. But every successful family needs a son. Boys are different because they are stronger and smarter. They can take care of businesses better than girls. Grace felt sad when she heard this, but she didn't say anything. She just hugged her mother and walked away quietly. The village people were often talking about Margaret's desperate wish for a son. The older woman would shake their head and whisper, she should be grateful for what she has, but Margaret wasn't listening to anyone. She was spending thousands of dollars while visiting special doctors and taking expensive medicine. She was also traveling to different churches and paying money to priests who were promising to pray for her, the miracle baby. After 3 years of trying, Margaret finally became pregnant. She was so excited that she couldn't sleep or eat properly while she was telling everyone in the village about her pregnancy. This time, it will be a boy, she said confidently. I can feel it in my heart. When the baby was born, the doctor smiled and said, congratulations, Mrs. Margaret. You have a healthy baby boy. Margaret started crying with joy because she had finally gotten what she had been praying for. She named the baby Marcus, which means strong warrior. The whole village was celebrating with her. People brought gifts and money while they were throwing a huge party that lasted for 3 days. Margaret was so happy that she gave everyone who came to the party $100. Grace and Faith were excited too because they had been wanting a little brother for a very long time. They were helping their mother take care of Marcus and playing with him every day. He is so cute, Faith said while holding the baby carefully. Look at his tiny fingers. He's going to be the smartest boy in the world, Grace added while making funny faces to make Marcus laugh. But Margaret was already making plans that would change everything. From the moment Marcus was born, Margaret was treating him like he was made of gold. She hired 3 nannies just to take care of him, while she was buying him the most expensive clothes, toys, and everything else he wanted. When Marcus was learning to walk, Margaret would follow him everywhere. If he fell down, she would pick him up immediately and kiss his bruises. If he was crying, she would buy him a new toy to make him stop. Boys need special treatment, she told the nannies while they were watching Marcus play. Make sure he gets everything he wants and don't let him cry or get upset about anything. Grace and Faith were watching all this happen. They were remembering when they were babies because their mother had been loving but strict. She had taught them to say please and thank you while she was making them clean up the toys and help in the kitchen. But Marcus was different. He never had to clean up anything and he never had to say please or thank you. If he wanted something, he would just point at it and someone would bring it to him ASAP. When Marcus was 3 years old, he threw a terrible tantrum in a toy store. He wanted 5 expensive toys at the same time. When Margaret said he could only have one, he started screaming and throwing things while people were staring at them. "Give him all the toys," Margaret told the store owner quickly. "I don't want him to be upset." The store owner was shocked because he had never seen a parent give in so easily to a child's demand. Grace and Faith looked at each other with worried faces. They could see that their little brother was becoming spoiled, but they didn't know what to do about it. While Marcus was getting everything he wanted, Margaret was still being very strict with her daughters. Grace and Faith had to wake up early every morning to help with household chores. They had to make their bed, clean their room, and help serve breakfast while Marcus was sleeping late. Education is important for girls, Margaret would say when she was watching them work. You need to learn how to take care of a home and a family. Grace and Faith were studying hard in school. They got excellent grades and never caused any trouble. When they came home, they were doing their homework without being asked. They helped cook dinner and wash the dishes while Marcus was playing with his toys. But Margaret barely noticed their good behavior because she was too busy watching Marcus and making sure he was happy. "Mama, look at my report card," Grace said one day while showing her mother all A's. "That's nice, dear," Margaret said without really looking because she was watching Marcus play with his toys. "Marcus, do you want some ice cream?" Faith won first place in a school competition, but Margaret missed the ceremony because Marcus had a small cold and she was worrying about him. The girls were starting to feel invisible in their own home. They loved their little brother, but they could see that something was wrong with the way he was being raised. As Marcus was growing older, his temper became worse and worse. When he was 5 years old, he would hit the nannies if they weren't giving him what he wanted fast enough. When he was 6, he started breaking things when he was getting angry. One day, Marcus wanted to play with Faith's favorite toy, but she said no. He grabbed it and threw it against the wall while the doll's head was breaking into pieces. Faith started crying. "Mama, look at what Marcus did to my doll." But instead of punishing Marcus, Margaret bought Faith a new doll and told Marcus, "Next time, ask nicely before you take something." Marcus wasn't listening because he was already thinking about what else he wanted to do. The servants in the house were becoming afraid of Marcus. He would throw food at them if they didn't like what they were cooking. He would scream at them if they weren't moving fast enough. But Margaret was always taking his side. Boys have more energies than girls. She would explain why Marcus was having another tantrum. They need to express themselves. When Marcus was 7, he started having huge tantrums that were lasting for hours. He would throw himself on the floor, kick his leg, and scream until his face was turning red. The whole house would shake from his noise while everyone was trying to calm him down. Margaret was getting desperate because she didn't know how to make Marcus stop being so angry all the time. She took him to doctors, but they all said the same thing. This boy needs discipline and boundaries. But Margaret didn't want to hear that because she thought discipline would hurt Marcus's feeling. One particular bad day, Marcus was having a tantrum because Margaret had said no to buy him a motorcycle. He was 8 years old, but he wanted to ride a motorcycle like the older boys in the village. "I hate you," Marcus screamed at his mother while he was throwing toys across the room. "You are the worst mother in the world." He was so angry that he picked up a wooden toy and threw it at Margaret. The toy hit her arm and left a bruise while she was standing there in shock. Margaret had never been hit by anyone before, especially not her own child. But instead of punishing Marcus, she did something that would change both of their lives forever. She sat down on the floor next to Marcus, who was still screaming and kicking. "Marcus," she said softly while he was crying, "I can see that you're very angry. Maybe it will help if you hit me a little bit. It might make you feel better." Marcus stopped screaming and looked at his mother with surprise. "Can I really hit you?" he asked. "Just a little bit," Margaret said, "if it helps you feel less angry." So Marcus hit his mother on the arm. It didn't hurt much, but Margaret was pretending it helped him feel better. "Do you feel calmer now?" she asked while she was rubbing her arms. Marcus nodded. He did feel a little bit calm, But not because hitting his mother had helped. He felt calmer because he had discovered something new. He had power over his mother. From that day forward, whenever Marcus was getting angry, Margaret would let him hit her. At first, it was just small slap on her arms or legs while she was telling herself she was helping him learn to manage his emotions. This is better than letting him break things or hurt other people. She was convincing herself. Grace and Faith were horrified when they saw what was happening. "Mama, this is wrong," Grace said one day after watching Marcus hit their mother during another tantrum. "You shouldn't let him hurt you." "You don't understand," Margaret replied while she was hiding her bruises. "Marcus is special and he has a lot of energy and emotions inside him. This helps him let loose of those feelings." But it wasn't safe at all. Every time Marcus was hitting his mother, he was learning that violence was an acceptable way to solve problems. He was also learning that he could control other people by hurting them. Faith tried to talk to her mother too. "Mama, when Grace and I were little, you taught us to use our words when we are angry. Why is Marcus different?" "Boys are different from girls," Margaret said firmly. "They need different kind of help." The servants in the house were whispering among themselves because they had never seen anything like this before. They wanted to help, but they were afraid of losing their jobs. As Marcus was getting older and stronger, his hits became harder and more painful. By the time he was 9 years old, Margaret was getting real bruises from his attack. While she was starting to wear long sleeves to hide the marks on her arms, Marcus was also getting smarter about his anger. He learned that if he wanted something expensive, he could get it by threatening to have a tantrum, while Margaret would give him whatever he wanted rather than deal with his violence. "I want a new bicycle," Marcus would say. "But you just got one last month," Margaret would reply. "Then I guess I'll have to get angry," Marcus would say with a mean smile while he was making a feast. Margaret would buy him the bicycle immediately. The people in the village were starting to notice changes in Marcus while he was becoming rude to adults and mean to other children. He would push smaller kids and take their toys. When parents were complaining to Margaret, she would make excuses for him. "He's just being a boy," she would say while Marcus was standing behind her with a smirk. Boys play rougher than girls, but Marcus wasn't playing. He was learning to be a bully while everyone was watching. Grace and Faith were now teenagers and they were ashamed of their brother's behavior. They stopped bringing friends home because they were embarrassed by the way Marcus was acting. Grace and Faith had grown up to be kind, respectful young women while they were doing well in school and helping their mother with the business. But Margaret still didn't appreciate them the way he should have. "Mama," Grace said one evening while they were sitting at dinner, "I got accepted to the university. I want to study business so I can help you run the company." "That's wonderful, dear," Margaret said, but she was distracted because Marcus was upstairs in his room and she could hear him throwing things around. "Maybe I should go check on Marcus," Margaret said while she was starting to get up. "Mama, sit down," Faith said firmly. "Grace is trying to tell you something important." Margaret sat back down, but she was still listening to the sound that were coming from upstairs. "Don't you think it's strange that Grace and I never have tantrums?" Faith asked while she was looking at her mother seriously. "Don't you think it's strange that we never hit you or break things when we are angry? You girls are naturally calmer," Margaret said while she was fidgeting with her napkin. "Marcus has a different personality." "No, Mama," Grace said while she was leaning forward. "We are calm because you taught us to be calm. You taught us to use our words and think before we act. You taught us to respect other people and to control our emotions." "But Marcus is different," Margaret insisted. "Marcus isn't different," Faith said. "You are treating him differently and it's turning him into a person that nobody likes." Margaret didn't want to hear this, so she got up and went to check on Marcus while she was leaving her daughters sitting sadly at the table. The people in the village were talking more and more about Marcus and his behavior while they were working in their shops and meeting at the market. They all had been so happy when Margaret finally had a son, but now they were worried about what kind of man he was becoming. "That boy has no respect for anyone," said Mrs. Johnson while she was organizing her store shelves. He came in here yesterday and knocked over a display of canned food. When I asked him to help clean it up, he laughed and walked away. His mother needs to discipline him, said Mr. Williams while he was pumping gas. But every time someone tries to talk to her about it, she makes excuses. The village elders were particularly concerned while they were meeting at the community center. They had seen many children grow up over the years, and they knew that Marcus was heading for trouble. A child who doesn't learn respect at home will never learn it anywhere, said Elder Thompson, the oldest man in the village. Margaret is creating a monster. But when people try to talk to Margaret about Marcus, she will get defensive and angry. Don't tell me how to raise my son, she would say while her face was turning red. I know what's best for him. The community was starting to lose respect for Margaret, while she had always been looked up to a successful businesswoman. Now, people were seeing her as a failed mother. When Marcus turned 13, he was taller than his mother and much more stronger, while his fits of anger were becoming dangerous. Margaret was getting seriously hot during their sessions. One day, Marcus was angry because Margaret had hired a tutor to help him with his schoolwork. He was failing all his classes because he never did any homework or paid attention in the class. I don't want a tutor, Marcus screamed while he was pacing around the room. I don't need anyone to help me. But Marcus, you need to learn, Margaret said gently while she was trying to stay calm. Education is important. I don't care about education, Marcus yelled while his face was getting red. I'm rich. I don't need to learn anything. He was so angry that he punched his mother in his stomach while Margaret was doubling over in pain and having trouble breathing. Grace and Faith heard the commotion and came running while they were finding their mother sitting on the floor, holding her stomach and crying. That's it, Grace said angrily while she was helping her mother stand up. We are calling the police. No, Margaret said quickly while she was wiping her tears. It was an accident. Marcus didn't mean to hurt me. But Marcus was standing nearby with a satisfied smile on his face while he was enjoying the fact that he had hurt his mother. Everyone could see it. Mama, this has to stop, Faith said while she was kneeling beside her mother. He's going to seriously hurt you one day. He's just going through a difficult phase, Margaret said weakly while she was still holding her stomach. All teenagers are difficult. But Grace and Faith knew this wasn't normal teenage behavior while they were realizing their brother was becoming dangerous. Dr. Peterson, the family doctor, had been treating Margaret's mysterious injuries for months while she was always claiming she had fallen or walked into something. He was getting suspicious. Margaret, he said during one of her visits while he was examining fresh bruises on her arms, I'm seeing a pattern of injuries that concerns me. Your bruises are in places that don't match your explanations. Margaret looked uncomfortable while she was avoiding his eyes. I'm just clumsy, doctor. Are you safe at home? Dr. Peterson asked directly while he was sitting down to face her. Is someone hurting you? Margaret was quiet for a long moment while she was thinking about what to say. Then she said, it's not what you think. I'm helping my son deal with his anger. It's therapeutic. Dr. Peterson was shocked while his eyes were widening. Margaret, letting someone hit you is not therapy. It's abuse. And you are teaching your son that violence is acceptable. You don't understand, Margaret said while she was getting defensive. Marcus is special and he needs special care. What Marcus needs is discipline and consequences, Dr. Peterson said firmly while he was leaning forward. You are creating a young man who thinks he can solve his problem with violence. This will not end well. But Margaret didn't listen while she was leaving the doctor's office and never going back to see him. Marcus was now 15 years old and completely out of control while he had been expelled from 3 different schools for fighting and disrespecting teachers. He had no friends because he was mean to everyone, while the only people who would tolerate him were those who were afraid of him. Margaret was covered in bruises all the time. Now, while she had to wear makeup to hide the marks on her face and long sleeve to cover her arms, she was also becoming afraid of her own son, but she couldn't admit it to herself. One evening, Marcus wanted money to buy expensive shoes that cost more than the most people made in a month. I already gave you money this week, Margaret said. tiredly while she was counting bills. I want more money, Marcus demanded. I think you have enough shoes, Margaret said while she was looking at his closet full of expensive footwear. Marcus's face turned red with anger while he was clenching his fist. Give me the money now, or I will have to get angry. Marcus, please, Margaret said while her voice was trembling. Try to use your words. Tell me why you need the shoes. But Marcus was past the point of using words. He grabbed his mother by the shoulders and shook her hand while he was slapping her face so hard that she fell to the ground. Give me the money, he screamed. Margaret was lying on the floor while her cheek was burning from the slap. For the first time, she felt truly afraid of her son while she could see something in his eyes that had never been there before. Pure hatred. She gave him the money. It was a Tuesday morning in March when Margaret needed to go to the village market to buy grocery. Because all the servants had quit, she asked Marcus to come with her, but he didn't want to go. I'm tired, Marcus said rudely while he was lying on the couch. Buy the groceries yourself. I need help carrying the bags, Margaret said while she was putting on her coat. Please, come with me. I said no, Marcus yelled. Margaret decided to go alone, but Marcus changed his mind at the last minute. While he was getting bored and wanting to get out of the house, the village market was crowded that morning. While people were shopping for fresh vegetables and meat, children were playing in the square, while their mothers were talking with friends. Margaret was at the vegetable stand when she realized she had forgotten her wallet at home. Marcus, she said while she was checking her purse again. I forgot my wallet. Do you have any money with you? No, Marcus said. Even though he had the money Margaret had given him for the shoes. We'll have to go back home, Margaret said while she was putting the vegetables back. I don't want to go home, Marcus said while he was getting irritated. I want to stay here, but I need to pay for the vegetables, Margaret explained while people were starting to notice their conversation. That's your problem, Marcus said rudely while he was crossing his arm. Margaret felt embarrassed while people were starting to stare at them. She tried to speak quietly to Marcus, but he was getting angry. I don't care about your vegetables, Marcus yelled while the whole market was becoming quiet. I don't care about anything you want. Everyone was watching the scene unfold while children were stopping their games to look. Marcus, please lower your voice, Margaret whispered while her face was turning red with shame. But Marcus was past the point of listening while he was angry because his mother had embarrassed him by forgetting her wallet. He was angry because people were staring at them. Don't tell me what to do, Marcus screamed at his mother. Then he did something that shocked everyone in the market while he was raising his hands and slapping his mother across the face. Margaret stumbled backward while she was holding her cheek. The crowd gasped in horror. Marcus, stop, Margaret said while tears were forming in her eyes. But Marcus wasn't finished. While years of being allowed to hit his mother had led to this moment, he grabbed Margaret by his shoulder and shook her hand while he was breathing heavily with rage. I hate you, he screamed while spit was flying from his mouth. You are stupid and useless. Then he pushed her to the ground while Margaret was falling hard on the concrete and scraping her knees and hand. Marcus stood over his mother while he was breathing heavily. His fists were clenched and his face was twisted with rage while blood was trickling from her nose. You worthless woman, he shouted while the crowd was frozen in shock. You are nothing without me. As Margaret was lying on the ground and looking up at her son's angry face, she finally understood what she has done. She had created a monster while all those years of letting him hit her had led to this moment. She could see the faces of the people around her, while some looked horrified, some looked sad, and some looked angry, but all of them were disappointed in her. Mrs. Johnson stepped forward and helped Margaret to her feet while she was asking gently, "Are you all right, dear?" Margaret couldn't speak while she was shaking and crying. Blood was trickling from her nose and her dress was torn and dirty. Marcus was still standing there while he was breathing heavily. He looked at the crowd with defiance while he was acting as if he was proud of what he had done. "What are you all looking at?" He snarled while his eyes were darting around the crowd. "This is none of your business." Elder Thompson stepped forward while he was an old man, but his voice was strong and clear. "Young man," he said while he was pointing at Marcus, "you have just committed one of the most shameful acts I have ever witnessed. You have dishonored yourself, your mother, and your entire family." Marcus laughed meanly while he was showing no remorse. "I don't care what you think, old man. My mother deserved it." The crowd was murmuring angrily now while some of the men were moving closer to Marcus, and he could see that they were angry with him. "You need to apologize to your mother right now," said Mr. Williams while he was stepping forward. "I am not apologizing for anything," Marcus said defiantly while he was backing away slightly. Margaret was still crying quietly while she could hear everything that was being said, but she felt like she was in a dream. This couldn't be real. Why this couldn't be happening? But it was real. Why this was the result of 16 years of wrong choices. That night, after the police had come and gone without arresting him, because Margaret refused to press charges, Marcus was seen alone in his room. For the first time in his life, he was truly alone while everyone in the house was avoiding him. He was staring at his reflection in the mirror while he was trying to understand what had happened. The face looking back at him was angry and cold, but for just a moment, he saw something else wide deep in his eyes. There was a flicker of confusion. Why did everyone look at him with such disgust? Why was his mother crying so much? Why did he feel empty inside even though he had gotten what he wanted? Marcus was thinking about the other boys in the village, why they had friends and people who liked them. They were laughing and having fun while he was always angry and alone. But these thoughts were too uncomfortable, so he pushed them away while he was convincing himself that everyone else was wrong and he was right. He would never admit it, but in that quiet moment, Marcus was wondering if there was something broken inside him. The wondering didn't last long while he was too proud and too damaged to face the truth about himself. The days following the incident were the darkest of Margaret's life, while she couldn't leave the house because she was too ashamed to face the people in the village. Couldn't look at Marcus without feeling sick to her stomach. She couldn't stop thinking about all the mistakes she had made. She was remembering the day Marcus was born and how happy she had been while she was remembering all the prayers she had said, begging God for a son. She had gotten exactly what she had asked for, but she had destroyed it with her own hands. She was thinking about Grace and Faith, why she had treated them differently from Marcus. They had grown up to be a wonderful women despite not getting the same attention and privileges as their brother, why they had learned to be strong, independent, and kind because she had taught them to be that way. But Marcus had learned to be selfish, violent, and cruel because she had taught him that too. Margaret was spending hours looking at old photo albums while she could see the progression in the pictures. Marcus was getting more and more spoiled while she was getting more and more desperate to please him. Every picture was telling the same story while it showed a mother who had loved her son so much that she had forgotten to teach him how to love others. The people in the village had lost all respect for Margaret while they felt sorry for her, but they were also angry with her for creating the problem in the first place. She brought this on herself, people would whisper while they were walking in their gardens. We all tried to warn her, but she wouldn't listen. That boy is dangerous now, others would say while they were walking to church. Who knows what he would do next? Some people felt sorry for Grace and Faith while they were saying, those girls turned out so well despite having Marcus as a brother. They are nothing like him. Margaret's businesses started to suffer while people didn't want to work with someone who couldn't control her own son. Employees were quitting and customers were going elsewhere while the respect that Margaret had built up over many years were gone in one morning. Marcus continued to live in the house, but he was like a stranger to his mother now, while he would take money from her purse, eat the food she bought, and use everything she provided, but he wouldn't speak to her unless he wanted something. He was showing no remorse for what he had done in the market, while in his mind, he had done nothing wrong. Grace and Faith were visiting their mother regularly, but they refused to be in the same room with Marcus. He's not our brother anymore, Grace said sadly, while she was holding her mother's hand. Our real brother died a long time ago. This person is someone else entirely. Margaret tried to talk to Marcus about what had happened, but he wouldn't listen. You deserve it, he would say coldly while he was walking away, "You are weak and pathetic." These words were hurting Margaret more than any physical blow ever had. Why this was the child she had sacrificed everything for. Years passed. While nothing changed, Marcus continued to live off his mother while he was treating her badly. Margaret continued to support him while she was growing more and more depressed. The story of what happened in the market became a cautionary tale throughout the village and beyond, why parents would tell their children about Marcus and Margaret as an example of what happens when you don't discipline your child properly. It doesn't matter if you have a son or a daughter. Parents would say while they were talking their children into bed, all children need to learn the same lesson about respect and kindness. As Margaret was sitting in her big house and surrounded by all the wealth she had accumulated over the years, she realized that none of it mattered. She had everything money could buy, but she had nothing that truly mattered. Why she had lost the respect of her community, the love of her son, and most importantly, her own self-respect. She was thinking about the prayers she had said so many years ago while she was begging God for a son. She had gotten what she had asked for, but she had wasted the gift through her own poor choices. If she could go back in time, she would do everything differently. Why she would treat Marcus the same way she had treated Grace and Faith. She would teach him to be kind, respectful, and responsible. Why she would show him that being a boy didn't make him more important than his sisters. But time only moves forward, never backward. Why Margaret had to live with the consequences of her actions for the rest of her life. The son she had prayed for had become her greatest sorrow, while the boy she had thought would carry on her legacy had destroyed it instead. In the end, Margaret learned the hardest lesson of all, that true love sometimes means saying no, and that good parenting requires discipline as well as affection. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to share this story with your family and your friends who might love to see them. Till I see you again in my next story. Goodbye.